2. Well, wasn't that a fast week? Here we are, episode 427 of Fine Music. Our dependable leadoff man, Fred Whitlock, far more dependable than his internet connection. Go ahead, Fred.
I discovered this artist, HOWE GELB, and it turns out he has a solo piano album out, Weathering, and it's an atmospheric album that has a lot of influences of Eric Satie, T.S. Monk, a little bit of George Winston, a little bit of classical touch to it. Turns out he's been recording since '85 with a group called Giant Sand, a country punk band, and he's been putting out solo albums since 1991. I guess he's got about 2 other instrumental piano albums. The keyboards, some critics said the keyboards even like late Leonard Cohen keyboards. The light and the shadows fill in all the spaces. He's got a song called Coffee versus Rain, where his voice comes in and says, "This is your wake-up call." The low key of the piano, quiet piano playing shouldn't be discounted. It's very enjoyable. It creates a mood. He's got beautiful melodies, and it creates a great atmosphere for the ear. Now I'm going to get into some guitarists. In 1963, there was a hit instrumental record, Memphis by Lonnie Mack. And he predated blues rock, Americana, blue-eyed soul. He was way ahead of his game when this single came out. He was recording for a small label for Fraternity Records. It was a big hit. Then he came out with his second instrumental, the Wham, and that didn't go up the chart as well as Memphis did. Memphis was a Chuck Berry song that was a B-side of one of his hits, but this was an instrumental version that really rocked out and showed off his guitar playing. He came out with an album, The Wham of That Memphis Man, in 1963. And it's been reissued many times, and now it's Ace Records from England's reissued it a few years ago, and it's streaming everywhere. It's a great album. It shows off his guitar playing. There's several instrumentals along with his vocals. He sings soul ballads so incredibly well, and his lightning fast guitar runs just are great. They hold up just as well as today as they did back then. He'll scream passionately in the middle of a song. He'll sing so well that one black radio was playing his, from what I read, was playing his music, and then they found out he was white. They took the single off their playlist.
Oh.
But there's some great tunes on this old album, and it's a blueprint for every blues guitar album, rock album that ever came out ever since. And one of his biggest fans was Stevie Ray Vaughan. And after recording in the 80s for Elektra Records, they didn't do too well with those albums. I think they were just too much of a mixture of things for his fans to get back into him, and he got lost and he retired. But Stevie Ray Vaughan tracked him down and talked him into joining Alligator Records, and he recorded a couple of albums that are great. The standout one is called Strike Like Lightning. It's produced by Stevie Ray Vaughan. Vaughan plays on 5 of the cuts, and it's just shows that he was most underrated guitarist of all times. Vaughan just jams with him, and they rip through notes that it's just really stirring album. Starts off with Hound Dog Man. That album shows that it's going to jump right at you, and it's definitely ends up being a great blues rock album. It ends with an acoustic number, Oreo Cookie Blues, and it features Vaughn on National Steel guitar with Mack on acoustic. This is an album that you could easily get into if you like blues rock music. Then getting into the jazz guitarist, Pat Metheny last Friday came out with a new album, Moon Dial. It's another solo project. Last year he came out with Dreambox, and he overdubbed a couple of things on that album, but this album is just straight acoustic with this guitar that he had specially built for him. And it plays, I guess he can play high notes on it and baritone. It has baritone strings on it. I don't understand all the technical stuff, but he had this thing custom made for him. And this is about his fourth solo outing, and it's great. The precision and his moves on the strings, each note just rings out beautifully. He does the Beatles here, there, and everywhere, and brings a nice texture to it. He records Chick Corea's Your Everything from Return Forever album. He picked that up. It's ambitious, it's beautiful, it's delicate balance in it. It's a great showcase for his talent. And he's been doing some concerts, acoustic solo, for many, I guess all last year, and 2-hour shows. So he shows off just how deep he can get and how each note is meaningful and has a credible texture. So that's Moon Dial. Now, Al Di Meola hasn't been around for a while, even though he's been recording since solo, I think, 67. He had a heart attack and took some time off, and then the pandemic hit, and he started working on an album. And this shows off his acoustic side with a little bit of electric arrangements in some of them, but it also has windwards, brass, and classical orchestra behind him, some of the cuts. It really shows off his useful skills, and again, this has great texture to it. The tranquility is cool and it's memorizing. It's got jazz, world music, classical touches. Fantango opens up the album and it just pulls you in right away. Each cut is quiet yet very dramatic, soulful atmosphere. One critic said, this offers something that you'll love for all his longtime fans or his new listeners. It's definitely pulls out all stops on his guitar playing.
That's the Country Punk Blues Jazz Report. Well, covering the bases there. Way to go. Thank you, Fred.